Who are you and what do you do? But before that meeting, you'd never thought of becoming an entrepreneur. Can you remember your first client? Welcome to the JOD Pod, a micro podcast where we interview CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, authors, and coaches. Today, we are joined by Dawn Poteau, founder of Talent Activators. Great to have you with us today, Dawn.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So for those of us who don't know you, Dawn, who are you and what do you do?
So I am the founder and CEO of Talent Activators, as you mentioned, and I focus specifically on helping executive leaders in small to large organizations really make successful transitions into new roles. Corporate Executive Board says that between 50 and 70% of executives fail in the first 18 months. I've had that experience myself, and I love to help leaders make those transitions be successful. And that's really where I coach from. I help them through various stages of their journey, all the way to getting in that role in the first 6 months, and then well beyond that as they start to look at succession and developing people in their roles for their future opportunities.
That's awesome. Is this something that's happening more now? This kind of transition of leaders into different kinds of roles because of the kind of changing landscape?
Well, there's a lot of conversation about that right now because they're talking about, at one point we had the Great Depression. Now we're looking and preparing for the Great Resignation. And I would say specifically globally as well as here locally, they're estimating that approximately 55% of the workforce is thinking about it. 44% is actually doing something about it. So I was just talking with a fellow head of HR yesterday who said to me that she was talking to a recruiter that works for LinkedIn and said that they're all preparing for that great resignation that's going to come, where people are going to actually start leaving organizations as we begin to be able to move, I call it freely about the cabin, as we've been transitioning out of COVID.
That's incredible. I work with a lot of recruiters and they've never been busier. They are so busy. There is still a big skills gap that are leaving a lot of roles on the table. But I think a lot of people are kind of having that realization, aren't they, that life can be different to the corporate rat race, and changing into a new role is definitely on the cards for a lot of people. Those numbers are astonishing, Dawn. They really are. I suppose leading into that, I'm guessing you weren't always an entrepreneur, running your own business, helping people do this. What made you make that, change, make that activated your entrepreneurial spirit back in the day?
Well, yes, I spent most of my career in corporate America, we would call it, in large organizations. I, was fortunate to work, I live in Michigan, so I'm part of the Motor City capital of the world in Detroit here. And so I had the opportunity to work at Chrysler and a couple of their tier 1 suppliers. But I also got a really great opportunity in 2017 to work for an entrepreneur. His name is Manoj Bhargava. He owns 5 Hour Energy, so some people may know that product pretty well. And I got bit by the bug. And people have heard me tell this story before, but when I interviewed with him back in 2017, he said, there's good news and bad news of coming to work with me. The good news is you'll learn more from me in 1 year than it would take you to learn 5 years in a corporate job. The bad news is I will ruin you for corporate life. I laughed. I said, okay, I'll take my chances. And sure enough, he did. And I called him last October to tell him that I had started my own business and was doing this full time. And I actually got to see him again last week and compared notes on where we are. But that journey that I went on where I got to lead a business, I brought a medical device back to the United States, which, for some people, you never get experiences like that. And I bit the bug. So I started looking at corporate opportunities after my time with him ended, because we naturally had taken some businesses through a different evolution. When we got done, I thought, I'm going to go back to corporate. And then as I continued on my journey, all of the signs were pointing me in different directions, and none of them were going back to corporate. And then as they say, we got hit by COVID. And next thing you know, the world changed. And I thought, there's no way I could be going into a corporate job right now. And other signs and signals and conversations I was having with people really led me on the path to make sure that I could start my own business. So a year ago, May, I got Talent Activators up and running and have been helping to coach leaders in transition since
Wow.
then. So that's kind of
That's
how it
incredible.
happened.
And before that meeting, you'd never thought of becoming an entrepreneur or setting your own business up at all?
No, I would say that there were a lot of my friends that told me I should. And I was like, no, it's not for me. And then the next thing you know, I probably, it's like we have a saying, I've seen commercials here where it's like, you tell two friends and they tell two friends and so on and so on. Well, I think after about the 20th time of somebody saying you should look at your own business, I was like, okay, I'll look at it. And I found myself in a classroom in January of 2019 going through a Brene Brown event called Dare to Lead. And I found myself at the end of the week jumping into this, like what I was going to do. And I said it out loud. I said, I'm starting Talent Activators. And I went, wait a minute, who said that? Wow, it was me. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
That's so wonderful. It's great to hear people that kind of jump through that hoop and step out of their comfort zone to create something like that. That's fantastic. That really is. Can you remember? So you must be able to remember when you started up Talent Activators. Can you remember your first client?
Yes. Most of my first customers have all been through my network. So I had somebody refer I would say my very first client was a referral in. And then what I would say is the first person that was really in that new role in that transition was somebody I'd worked with previously, and we reconnected, and she's like, I'm starting a new job. She's actually on my website. She did a wonderful testimonial for me about her experience, but we met through, working together, and she knew what I was doing. She found a lot of my social media stuff on LinkedIn and said, hey, I see what you're doing, and I'm in this new job. Never been in this position before, but could really use your help and guidance. So that's how it got
That's really
started.
important, I think, because I think a lot of people that are just starting a business, you can have the idea, you can build a website, you can think that you're in business, but until you get that first customer, it's not really validated yet. So the fact that you were kind of putting out this messaging about what you were doing, and that resonated with someone to then turn into a client, I think is powerful. And for anybody else starting their own business out there, like make sure you're making a noise to get people's attention, even if it's to make a noise to people already in your network, that they can then reach out to you.
Well, I know you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and that's a lot of where your customers are, and mine are too. And I have a customer right now that we had a conversation 2 weeks ago, one of our weekly discussions, and he was, it was really funny because he's like, he says, I was following you on LinkedIn for a long time. He said, I'm so glad I reached out to you, and this is really benefiting me, and I'm learning so much in this process. I'm so glad I reached out. And sometimes what we don't realize, especially with social media, is that people are watching. And you probably know the statistics better than I do, but I think what I hear is that people need to see a message 7 times before they might take steps and action if they're really seeking someone out. And having that consistent message out there, I've worked really hard on it and really hard on building my brand, as well as just being available for people for conversation, because I really want to help and I really want to serve my clients. And I really have been going through this evolution, particularly in the last month or so, about having more of that service mindset. And I think that also differentiates me at times from my competitors, but for my clients, I think they will witness and experience that.
How does that manifest then? So if someone was listening to this and they were interested in Talent Activators, what do you actually do for someone that's in that that's in that point in their life where they're trying to think about next steps?
Well, I think it starts with that initial conversation. So, people can book a time with me, and I've got, it's on my website, so people have pretty easy access to get a conversation started. And when you mentioned my first client, and I think back to that, I was having this discussion with a coach recently, Melissa Ford, who wrote the book Living Service: The Journey of the Prosperous Coach. And we were talking about this, and I can think of a client that I had a year ago that we didn't have a lot of conversation leading up to deciding to work together. It was through a referral. This person was looking to, transition into a new job. I was excited about having a client, and we had had our initial discussion and our first coaching session really with the exchange of money, like this is how much it's going to cost. Okay, here's the check. Let's move forward. But what I've discovered in the last year is there's got to be a really good fit between the client and myself. And I really want to feel like I can serve them in a way that's going to be meaningful as well as serve, help myself in that process. So I really look for that win-win opportunity. But, it's something I'm still trying to get, I'll call it that right frame of reference and how you have those conversations. But I want to have multiple conversations with somebody before we actually engage in that coaching relationship to make sure it's a good fit and that they understand my style, because I know that for the clients I work well with, we will work well with together because we've had those discussions and it's led up to that part. There's times I think that we jump in too quickly as coaches to just want to get the proposal out and get the money. And that's not what it's about. It's about the relationship, and can I as a coach be of service to you as the individual? If not, the other thing that I feel really proud about for myself is that I have a great network of other coaches. And I also tell my clients, talk to 2 or 3 other coaches. Don't just go with me. Make sure you've talked to other people to make sure it is a good fit for you. And I have a client right now that, is in that process. She's talking to another coach, and we had our first conversation. She was able to make some progress. And then I invited her to another conversation while she's still in the process because of something that she mentioned where I'm like, I feel like I can really help you. She has a new team member that's coming into her organization. And I said, let's get that person set up for success right away. Whether you work with me or not, let me help you. How can I be of benefit to you right now? And benefit to her is being able to walk through that conversation and get ready for this new hire that she's got coming in that's transitioning into a new role.
I love that attitude that you've got there, because it relates back to what we were talking about before I pressed record, and that kind of serendipity of relationships that you help someone out. You never know who that person knows, who that other person can then help out in the future, and what will come back to you. Pay it forward, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, helping people out and almost not pushing away, but maybe directing in a different direction people that aren't going to be an ideal fit for you, because you won't get them results, and they won't necessarily enjoy the interaction so much with you. Like spending time with you is going to be great, but actually getting the results is the main thing. And I think a lot of businesses could benefit from, that service first, helping people, help the human out first kind of attitude, and making sure that you're actually working with those people that you can have the biggest impact on. I love that, and I think that's something that's been very prevalent. Yeah. From other entrepreneurs that I've been speaking to, again, probably in the same period of time that you have, like in the last 6 months or so, defaulting to that kind of state.
Yeah.
Dawn, are you ready for some rapid fire questions? Dawn, what's your favorite app or SaaS product that you use every day?
My favorite app would be Canva. So I find myself using it every day, whether it's to do social media posts and updates that I get from my virtual assistant who's helping me with a lot of that. Putting proposals together for clients. I create thank you cards in it. I do all kinds of different things with it. It's just a great tool. It gives me lots of wonderful ideas. I hate starting with a blank sheet of paper, and their templates are amazing to help me get started.
Thank you. Canva. What's your most recommended book?
My most recommended book, well, for the work I do, I tend to recommend Finding Your Why by Simon Sinek or The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. So those are kind of the 2 go-tos.
Find Your Why is a bit of a Bible for me. Definitely my go-to that I'd probably read more than once. Once a year. More than once a year, I think would be OTT. Who's your favourite YouTuber or podcaster? I feel like I might know who this is, but you tell me.
Well, my local one would certainly be Dan Bennett, and I've really enjoyed the Entrepreneurial podcasts and videos that he does. I think from a podcast perspective, more than other people might know if you're not looking local, I think that I find myself on a regular basis going back and forth, of course, with Brene Brown and both her Dare to Lead and Unlocking Us. And then another one that not a lot of people know about, but is called 10% Happier. So it was started by Dan Harris, who is a newscaster here in the United States. And he brings on lots of different people to talk about, how they found mindfulness or meditation, or how they're changing their organizations around that. So it's something that I go to quite frequently.
Thank you for that, Dawn. Who's an up-and-comer, Dawn? Who's someone like an Elon Musk or a Dawn Coates, the CEO of Bet365, that's going to make some waves in the future?
I'm not sure you're going to like this answer, James, but I think that person has not been discovered yet. And I say that because I remember a year ago or so.
That's what I'm trying to do, Dawn. I'm trying to discover them. I'm trying to get.
I know. Well,
I'm trying to get the early knowledge so I could tap into that person.
Well, and I don't mean to cop out on this one, but I'm going to go back to it was probably a year ago or more, and I'm going to go back to Simon Sinek. I remember him coming on and doing one of those quick little video snippets, and I love his stuff. And he said that, especially as we were entering into COVID, he reminded us all that during the Great Depression, there were more millionaires created than any other time in the history of the world. I feel like we're at another one of those big crossroads. And I think that some of those people that have not been discovered yet are, I'm going to say, people like myself that started a business during COVID. And we are all building our businesses and we're doing things in such new and different ways that person hasn't quite been discovered yet. Now, if you want, we'll set a date on the calendar a year from now and let's see some of those people that are going to pop out. But that's what I think is going to happen. So it'd be really, easy to name some of those famous companies or people that we're thinking about. I'm going to go with that we don't know that person
exactly
yet.
The kind of answer I want, to be honest, Dawn, because I want to try and find these people that are on the up, that maybe are building things that aren't necessarily too publicly well known, that we can then try and go and learn from. Because it even happened in the last crash, 2008. There was plenty of businesses that blew up from that period of time, being made redundant and then having some spare time to then build something, and then they absolutely exploded. WhatsApp was exactly that kind of situation. The founder applied for a job at Facebook, got turned down, and then got to sell the business back to them in a couple of years later. I'm sure that's your long-term plan, Dawn.
Exactly.
Dawn, where's the best place for people to find you and interact with you online?
Online, the best place would be LinkedIn. So I'm out there. I have a business page called Talent Activators. You can just find me as Dawn Poteau, Poteau. I'm out there. I check it regularly and I'm posting frequently. I have a YouTube channel as well. It doesn't have my Talent Activators name yet, so I think you have to get to the 100 designation before you've got that. So if anybody wants to subscribe and help me out there, I will make it a little easier in the future. And then certainly talentactivators.com is my website.
Let's head to Dawn's YouTube and get it over 100. There we have it, Dawn Poteau, founder of Talent Activators, who help directors and above in mid to large organizations transition into new roles. And you've heard even so much more than that. Dawn managed to get her first customer through a referral, through networking, and through sharing her messaging via social media. Dawn's favorite app is Canva, closely followed by Calendly. And her most recommended book, Dawn had two, Start With Why by Simon Sinek and The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. Dawn loves watching and listening to Dan Bennett, the Entrepreneur Show on YouTube, and podcasts, Bernie Brown, Dare to Lead, and 10% Happier from Dan Harris. Dawn thinks that we should be keeping an eye on new business owners that have come out of lockdown, that are currently just starting out on their journey. They're going to be a big crossroads in the future where some of those businesses are going to absolutely blow up, and I couldn't agree more. There are going to be some very exciting businesses that have come out of the last 12 months or so. And you can find out more about Dawn and Talent Activators by heading to Dawn's website, talentactivators.com. That's TALENTACTIVATORS.com. Or by reaching out by Dawn directly on LinkedIn. We'll put all the links to all of that information in the show notes and below. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us today on the JOD Pod.
Thank you, James. It was great to be here. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the JOD Pod for today's interview with Dawn. to ensure that you don't miss any of these future episodes, you have to play the YouTube game. You have to click subscribe, you have to hit the bell, you have to click the thumbie up button, which they call a like. And please ask Dawn a question in the comments below. Ask Dawn a question about starting a business during COVID. Ask Dawn a question about, that you're stuck in your current role and you're not sure how to step forwards, or if you've got any of that negative self-talk going on, please reach out to Dawn, ask a question below, and I'm sure Dawn will follow up with every single one of them. And please feel inspired by Dawn's story today. Please go and build something yourself, create something yourself, and inspire the next generation that are coming through right behind us. Thanks for joining us today on the JOD Pod. If you enjoyed this interview, why don't you check out some of these other interviews that we've done on the JOD Pod. More inspirational CEOs, coaches, entrepreneurs, founders, and authors. I'm sure there's something here that will inspire you to build something new.